Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar on the UVexplorer Server product. We'll be going over the features and implementation during this 30-minute webinar. First, like to introduce Brian Kapp. He is one of our product specialists at UV Networks, and he will be running the demo for this presentation. My name is Paul Katzoff, and I'm the VP of Sales here at UV Networks. As far as the agenda goes, we are going to take you through a basic overview of UV Networks and our products, and then go right into the demo of the UVexplorer Server tool. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So a little background on UV Networks. We were founded in 2015, so roughly 8 years ago. We have two main products, UVexplorer Server and UVexplorer. Each of these products focus on network topology and configuration backup. UVexplorer Server is our main console product. It's an on-premise WebUI, and what it does is it rolls up all the information from multiple UVexplorer agents and provides it in a single user interface to log in and view all of the maps for those different locations. It also provides inventory asset discovery, basic network monitoring, and router switch firewall backups for your startup and running configs as well. The nice thing about UVexplorer Server is you can view these multiple internal or client networks. They're all siloed, but there's also RBAC or role-based access control. So that will allow you to provide access to employees, to stakeholders, and to clients. They can log in and view their siloed network anytime they like, which is a main feature of UVexplorer Server. And it can also configure UVexplorer agents remotely. And for the export, we offer multiple different types of exports in the Visio and PDF and other formats. But we also offer PRTG integration and Lucid chart integration. This allows our maps and data to go directly into these systems. The UVexplorer server architecture is straightforward. You have multiple agents located on different siloed networks, as we mentioned. These agents report back the data into UVexplorer Server. This data can include layer 2 network maps, inventory assets, as well as configuration data. And this data can be managed and viewed from the web console. There are two main use cases for UVexplorer Server. First is with managed service providers or MSPs. UVexplorer Server, like I mentioned, is a consolidated roll-up of multiple UVX agents. So this provides the MSPs with a single location to view all their client networks, to do network troubleshooting, to control all the UVexplorer agents, which has been very valuable. They also are able to export the data to their PSA and documentation tools, which is an added benefit of UVexplorer. The other case is pretty broad, and it's pretty much for any organization with multiple firewalled networks. So it could be a large corporation, a global corporation, or even small, medium-sized organizations that have 2 or 3 different firewalls. The UVexplorer agent, of course, sits on each of these networks, reports back to UVexplorer Server, and you can then interact with each of these agents throughout your organization. And I've talked a little bit about the UVexplorer is our second product, as we spoke about it as a UVexplorer agent. But UVexplorer itself is a Windows-based tool. It installs anywhere on your network, and it can do layer 2 discovery throughout your throughout your architecture, and it uses SNMP, SSH, WMI, Telnet, and a host of other protocols to access and capture data, and then provide that to you in a visualization, and also inventory assets as well. It's been very popular. If you want to see or learn more about UVexplorer, go ahead and check out our YouTube channel. We have quite a few videos there, and also on our website at uvexplorer.com. So we're going to jump right into the UVexplorer server demo. If you do have any questions for us as we go through this, please put them in the chat window. We have about 5 or 10 minutes at the end of this presentation for Q&A, so we'll get into those questions and try and answer all of them as we can. But in the meantime, I will hand this off to you, Brian, and we'll go from there.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen here, and you should be able to view my desktop. What you're viewing right here is actually the UVexplorer application, which is running on my laptop here. And this application, as Paul mentioned, can be ran as a standalone application. It runs on its own repository, and essentially this is the beginning point of any UVexplorer deployment. Is you would install the agent and configure it in a way that the protocols that we are going to use and the discovery settings that you'd like to discover your network with are defined here on the agent. And you can set them up so that you can run preliminary discoveries and view your results there. We're going to focus a little bit more on the UVexplorer server today, but this agent right here, for example, I have configured a number of discovery settings with SNMP and SSH credentials so that I can discover both the inventory, asset, and topology data along with a number of configs. But I've set these up as scheduled discoveries so that I have mainly three different discoveries. One of the complete lab, but then I have segments of those labs so we can simulate the way separate discoveries or agents actually can be managed here on any UVexplorer install. But one of the things about UVexplorer and the way that it does discovery is that every discovery that we do is captured in a raw or a roll-up discovery result. So we capture every scan that we do so that we can do comparisons about changes on your network. And these things can be viewed at any time that you want to go back and look, for example, at I'm going to do the complete lab here. If I wanted to go ahead and open that on the client, you're going to see lists of information here with details about categories of devices. And these are all the IP devices we found on the network, core devices, SNMP devices, routers and switches, and you can see all the details, and everything here is viewed here below, like system IP addresses, interfaces, all the details right down to models and serial numbers and so forth. But one of the key features is that we can display automatic topology, how devices are interconnected with each other. And then you can take these displays here, and as Paul mentions, you can export them to documentation formats like Visio, SVG, PDF, as simple as just right-clicking and exporting so that you can quickly create a document that accurately depicts your network, and along with very important details like IP addresses, MAC addresses, models, and serial numbers. So you could even hand these off to asset managers or other network engineers on your team. But as you discover the network, as you can see, these create different types of views based on their categories or custom views here at the bottom. These details can be vital to a larger team than just one individual agent. And so what we're going to demonstrate today is how you combine these agents on a UVexplorer server. Now, if you've started your work here on the UVexplorer client or agent, you can go back to your getting started view here and say, I'm going to go ahead and deactivate my license, which is a standalone license. And so I'm essentially going to disconnect the product. But then I'm going to go ahead and reactivate the product. And instead of doing the standalone activation, I'm going to go and do a UVexplorer discovery agent, which will interact with the discovery server. When I do that, I need to go ahead and build a connection between this agent and my UVexplorer server. Before I do that, though, I'm going to jump over to our UVexplorer interface here, and essentially I'm going to go back to the login screen. So basically, you'll come here and go ahead and log into your server. And once you're here, you'll see that you have a number of networks that you can display as either administrator or any kind of user. So we have different roles that you can be as far as different types of users inside the system. And so on my network here, I can define to say, well, I want this network to exist, but ultimately I want a number of agents to report into this network. So I'm going to go to my agent list, and I'm going to go ahead and add an agent so that so I'm going to say UV lab. Now I'm going to do this as a comprehensive agent here. So then as I click into that, I have no devices available. And as you can see, the user interface is very similar to the agent itself. You're going to get categories on the left and then device views here. We don't have any data here yet, but now that we have an agent defined, I can go ahead and click into this server. I simply connect into the server, and then I got to give it an API key. These API keys are defined here on the server, so you can give different access to different users through an API key. But once I have that API key defined, I can go to my agent, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that here into this, and I'm going to go ahead and connect, and it's going to show me what networks are available on my server, and also what agents. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this agent here. I'm going to go ahead and activate it, and it's going to ask you a question of what you want to, either you want to download the scheduled discoveries from the server, or you want to upload your scheduled discoveries in configuration from the agent. So we're going to go ahead and do an upload. Now when we do that, it's going to go ahead and take all the configuration from the agent and publish it to the server. Now one thing to note here is once we get connected to a UVexplorer server, the agent actually takes on the authentication model of the server. So we'd have to now log in at the agent level, which is actually a great benefit, because you can install these agents wherever you want, and you're not worrying about whether somebody can actually get into the network data without you giving them authorization. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down and go back to my server. Now you can see here, if I look at my network, you can see now I've got data published here. And if I look at my agents, I have this one agent. And if I also look at the discoveries on that agent, I can, well, they're still uploading here. We're getting the uploads of the different discoveries. And you can see I have different segments of the network. So I have my complete network, but I also have my UV lab and my UV second part of the lab. So if I drill into these different segments, you can see that I have a discovery here with a limited part of my lab, and I can look at all the details just like I would on the agent. And as I click down through them, I can see all the details of those devices, which includes everything that we saw on the client, and including also up here, if I look at the map, so it'll show me a small map of this segment of the network. Now, if I go to my other agent, I'm going to see another view of the network, which actually includes other devices. So as you can envision, this is actually, I have one agent or many agents that actually can discover different parts of your network, or different security domains inside your network. But then what UV Server allows you to do is once you connect those to an agent, you can actually work up the stack. So I can see here all of my discoveries of my agent. I see here all my agents, and as I click up, I'll actually see a combination of the data. So now if I go look at my switches, I have a combination of all the switches on my lab, and I'll get a different layout, and I'll actually get a different topology model as I look throughout the things. So as Paul mentioned, UVexplorer gives you a way that you can combine small segments or different parts of your network, and the UVexplorer will actually roll them all into one view so that you can see everything in one comprehensive list. Much like the agent, you can see everything here by category. I can click on that. I can drill into different devices by double clicking, or just looking at the category views. I can always flip back and forth between the devices and the map. But then I also have a number of other tools here from a global perspective. I can do layer 2 tracing. I can enable and disable ports. I can manage PoE from here. I can even do tools like find host if I wanted to search for particularly, like if I wanted to say Star-Lord, where is Star-Lord connected? I'll actually do that quickly, and it'll search your entire infrastructure under the My Network and tell you what IP address that device has, the MAC address, what switch it's connected to. And you also see some interesting things here related to jack, building, room, and label. With UVexplorer Server, we've actually done one integration with a infrastructure management system called Patch Manager, where we can actually reference their system and actually combine their physical facilities connections with room jacks and labeling and tell you exactly how those things connect up to switch ports and configuration. I can't do this on this demonstration because of we don't have access to a Patch Manager server on this network, but you can envision that you can get a lot of clarity simply by finding hosts across your whole infrastructure and knowing exactly what port it's connected to and including what building and room it's in, and right down to the label level. Also, along the lines of being able to find paths across your network, you can also look at, if I wanted to find a path between two different devices. For example, if I wanted to, let's just find this switch to this, well, they're directly connected, I guess, horribly there. You can actually click on different devices and see direct paths across the networks as they go from port to port, and traverse your network. So you can always troubleshoot from both this side and also from the agent. And we're not limited to the idea that, you can have one network. You can actually define many networks. Like, for example, if you're an MSP, you can define networks for every one of your client networks. And also, when you're setting up your accounts, you can actually, you as an administrator can create the networks, but you can also share those networks with members of different groups so that you can share network views with your clients, whether it be a user inside your own company or a user from an outside entity. A couple other key things that were mentioned, one of them was being monitors. There's simple type of monitors that UVexplorer can do. Like, for example, we can do a simple ping monitor that would just basically test whether a device is still active. But realistically, some of the key features of UVexplorer is that we can dive a lot deeper than just a ping or a performance monitor. Like, for example, we can do config monitors. Config monitors are elements that you can, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to jump back over to the agent just so you can see where this all starts. In a config monitor, you can tell us that you want to capture the startup and running configs at different intervals. And each time you do that, you can actually view the differences between those monitors and actually be alerted when things change. Like, for example, this one is set up to monitor this one device, but you can monitor many devices on a particular schedule and send out events based on changes. And not only do these events go directly to you, like through email, but you can also send those alerts directly to our monitoring partner, PRTG. So you can actually send an event into their infrastructure so you can see when devices' configs have changed, and you may need to drill into that to look at your, the config history. You can see when configs were captured, what those configs were doing, and then you can actually drill into the devices so that you can see the differences of those configs. For example, if I was to go to this device map and look at these devices here, I can see that my configs, I can look at these configs here at any time, or I can actually look at and compare these configs against some other running configs, so you can see whether they've changed and what elements of that have changed. So those type of monitors give you a little bit more clarity into deep elements of your network from a configuration standpoint. And also there's a number of other elements that UVexplorer can do, especially in the reporting area. We have reports that can give you full device connectivity, so you can always search for any device. You can find out where, like I said, there's Starlord. I know where they're connected. I can look at, let's see, any device. You can see the cross connections. You can see asset and inventory, IP addresses, MAC addresses, serial numbers, and models. And you can go down through the list here. And we also keep track of a thing called stale ports. Stale ports is where we inventory all the switch ports on the network and tell you how long certain parts of the network have been down. Some customers have very unique needs as far as dealing with stale ports, as far as taking care of turning a port down based on a certain age. And actually, in our newest releases, we'll be supporting the idea that you can do stale ports and you can disable switch ports after they've been down for a certain amount of days, and will automatically turn those down. And it will actually go and configure the device automatically via SNMP. We have lots of different tools along with that, but one thing we wanted to emphasize here with UVexplorer Server, the data that we keep inside of a UVexplorer agent is compressed and encrypted in a SQLite database on the agent, but then it's published to a Mongo database on the server. But people also often ask us, well, I can see the reports and I can export the reports as far as, just straight CSVs. Is there any other way you get to the data? And the answer is yes. The UVexplorer supports a full development API that, for example, this one right here, I can go ahead and connect to my network right here, and you can see I can list all the networks, all their discoveries, all of their and when they were done, and I can actually even indicate, like, for example, if I wanted to go to the this specific network right here, I can go ahead. This is just a simple example, but I can load this network. I can list the devices, which ones are in that configuration, and then we have a whole query API. That this little application right here is actually just it's not a wrapper around the API, but I just wanted to demonstrate that if I wanted to go in and see any device here, like if I wanted to search by IP on this one and say find the devices, it'll tell me everything about that device, including, interfaces, PoE. I mean, it's quite extensive, but you can actually do a wrapper around the UVexplorer server and extract information as far as all of its inventory, configuration information, monitoring information as far as configs are concerned. You can run any report. For example, if I want, this is hooked up to run the asset and inventory report. You can say I can run the report name here and all the details of this asset and inventory report here is easily captured through a simple REST API that you can extract all the information out and easily gather it together and do whatever you may need. And this API does not just stop at reporting. It actually can do configuration. So we have customers that actually use this API. You can automate creation of networks, of agents, discovery scopes, and protocols. So you could even script a whole interface into the UVexplorer server, so you can drive your own discovery scopes through other systems in your IT portfolio. So this server can actually go out and do all the work, but you just have to use the API to get it configured instead of having to go through a click API or UI like this. So I know that was fast and furious. I wanted to leave a little time for some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and see if there's anything on the chat side of.
Brian, we have a question here with the monitors. What type of notifications do we receive, or how's that provided for ping and those other monitors?
You can set them up to do a email event. So you can get both. We log the events both from a desktop and also send them through emails.
Okay, great. Another question we have here is with the integration into PRTG, is it UVexplorer Server connects to it, or does UVexplorer, and how does that work for those with a PRTG core server?
You can do it either way. We've made it flexible. Any scheduled discovery can connect directly to a PRTG server, either at the agent level, or you can do it up at the, sorry, click here. or you can click here where you can say, if I enable it, I can do it from the server. So you can pick the PRTG server and you can say, I want to export from the server or from the agent. Either one works. Just depends on your security and how you want the agents to interact with your PRTG server.
Okay, great. So the connections will be there either on the UVexplorer side or the UVexplorer server side. You can connect to your PRTG core server and import the maps and data and configs directly into PRTG. Let's see. I think that's all the questions I have on my side. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat window. We can jump onto those. And if not, we are ready to wrap up. We appreciate everyone joining our call, our webinar on UVexplorer Server. If you do have any questions or concerns or would like to know more about the UVexplorer Server product, please reach out to either myself or our support team. Brian Capp's available as well. We're here to take you through the product, help you understand how UVexplorer Server works in your environment with your network topology, and solve any issues that you have on your side. Thank you again for joining, and have a great day.